It is a dark, stormy night of the soul once more, and as such, I am compelled to talk about Castlevania. Mwahaha. It's finally time to talk about Order of Ecclesia. This one has been sitting in me for quite a while, and this game brings so much to the table. It was my first DS Igavania. In terms of which Vanias I played in order, factoring out classics, I started with Aria. Then Symphony was not that long after with, and this is important, a little bit of Roten mixed in. Then came back for Roten, and this was the next one after that. And a lot changed. A lot changed from what I was used to. I think the first thing to mention is that, the home and console teams worked together on this Castlevania, which gives it so much intention, so much clarity of mind and love and detail, and elegance from its design in the micro to its thought process and themes in the macro and how it sits in the larger series, and just its really unique aesthetic, which actually hits home in a pretty personal way. But, there's all this to talk about, and yet I haven't gotten around to it for a couple reasons, one of which is I already know it's not gonna be my favorite DS-vania living 7 months after starting it, because since then I played a different game, and I'm gonna do everything in my power to not talk about that game and how it colors all of my feelings. I'm gonna try so hard to just leave that till the end of the video. But I know it's not my favorite game that's very similar to it, though I really, really like it. And it's like maybe top 5, but it's probably not. Maybe it's fighting. It's fighting for top 5. Without further ado, I want to give Order of Ecclesia its evening, and not the last one. They do say every order has its evening, folks. No, don't they? I would like to posit something. Castlevania games tend to fit their protagonists to a pretty high degree. So, consider other series. Echoes of Wisdom was made to emphasize Princess Zelda's wisdom, and that's so clear, that's her moment. But no one Zelda game is ever made for Link. The series suits him, but there's not one game where it's like, oh yeah, that's that way because Link is green and likes items. Like, no, they're all that way because he's green and likes items. It's series-wide, it's not game-wide. Then Luigi's Mansion, right? Think about Luigi's Mansion, any of them, frankly, but especially the first one. It was made for scaredy cat Luigi. It's a little spooky, it's a little offbeat, it's very different from Mario stuff. Like, when you play it, it's like, oh yeah, I am Luigi. But in what way was Mario Galaxy made for Mario in any way besides, like, he jumps, Every game in the series is made for Mario. There's nothing about Mario Galaxy that's extra Mario. Whereas, Echoes of Wisdom, it's made for Zelda. Luigi's Mansion, admittedly, is becoming a series, but it's made for Luigi. It's built around him. It's filled with him and his personality. Castlevania, I think, makes it easier than any other series I know to pick up a game and say, I'm going to Soma's house today. Tomorrow, I'd like to go to Miriam's mansion. Talking about Order of Ecclesia and talking about its hero is so similar. Like, you can't really talk about the game without talking about Shinoa. As I mentioned before, there is an elegance that moves through every layer of this game as far as I can tell, and Shinoa is really elegant. To quote the lead programmer of much of the Castlevania game since Iga's takeover, I was reading that Curry the Kid, the main programmer, Ida Shutaro, he thinks that he specifically made Miriam less of a cool character, more of a, whatever she is, because Shinoa took up so much space in his mind as the cool girl. Like, Shinoa is cool, and I would say elegant. Like, she's very, she's got it all put together, She's got problems. We all have problems, but she's so elegant and so put together. And the game is exactly the same way. And I want to explore that on numerous levels. I mean, on one hand, they don't fit any pre-existing series lineage, and that lineage can mean classic and Ecclesia, or Belmont and Dracula, or Lacard, or Lacard Bro Pals, Morrises. Why did I say Lacards first? Then there's the Syphas. Did I say the Syphas? None of them are involved, to my knowledge so far. Shanoa is from a totally different part of the world, like specifically a small little order of people who are working to create a weapon that's not... Actually, it's not even the vampire whip at all. It's not like the Morrises and the Lacards trying to revive the vampire killer. They're just making their own thing. They're making the Dominus. They're doing something new. And in making Order of Ecclesia, this team made something completely new. Maybe people will be like, actually, this is a lot like Simon's Quest, but I haven't played Simon's Quest. Like, I will, like, nothing against Simon's Quest, but to me as a fan, like, this is hitting me in the face as an incredible mix. Also, Simon's Quest was made before Symphony of the Night. Like, this takes an entire lineage of Ecclesias and an entire lineage of classic Vanias, and it marries them. And, you know, people say this all the time, but saying it as my own discovery, because I also discovered it on my own, it's incredible. It's really, really fun. I have nothing but positive things to say about it, you know? Like... I'm not going to be like bashing this game or anything, because I admire it and I enjoy it. It just hasn't personally touched me on the same deep level that other games have. So I'd like to explore the various ways in which the other Ecclesias that I'm familiar with, though I will admit that going forward, I'm going to be upfront about the fact that I see it as kind of a mix. Like, yeah, it was made by Iga, but it's not a Metroidvania to me. We'll get to that later. I just want to elaborate on how I think it's very easy to say that Castlevania builds its games around its protagonists, like to a very notable degree that I've never explicitly heard anybody talk about before. Not that I've watched every video on this, but look, Portrait of Ruin, do you know that game? It's a B-team story. Like, it's not about the big heroes, it's about the side character dudes doing their darndest. It befits a game that's not really all that groundbreaking. It's just kind of casually experimental, trying out some new things, you know? And it sits comfortably amongst the other Vanias instead of trying to stake out its own clout. It's just, I don't know, I think it's a very humble game when I look at the whole history of the series. It's also entirely made to be played with two people and has a story that has to do with bringing unlikely friends together and uniting. And, you know, from the gameplay to the character design to what happens in the story, it's all very cohesive around this theme of working together. It's really, really nice. Then, in Aria of Sorrow, the story is mostly a confused kid, who is you, while is wandering through this weird nightmare while a bunch of adults are talking about you and your secret identity behind your back. You don't know what's going on. You're completely confused. It makes you feel very small in the same way that as the game progresses in normal Metroidvania style, you begin the game knowing nothing about what's going on, and you end the game being the master of the castle. You also start the game with, you know, no powers and end using all the power of the castle in a really, really elegant way that tells the story of Soma as, spoilers, in its own little gameplay style. And I'm really remarking lately on how much of that game's story, which I compliment frequently, I think it's one of my favorite executions of story in a limited text genre ever. It's just so cool how there's all these people you don't know, all these strangers, and they're all just like talking about shit you don't understand. Everything's confusing. It really makes you feel like a lost kid in a nightmare. It's just so Soma core. And when you get these souls, you are intimately in touch with the monsters. Like, Shanoa transmutes the monsters into her own weapons through sigils, but Soma just straight up copies them, you know? He does the exact same move that they use. He just copies them. They're literally in him, unfiltered, pure demon magic. It's beautiful, you know? He's literally taking pieces of himself and putting them back in, not transmuting them, not learning a skill from them necessarily, but using them. It's very, how do you say, like, you're one with the monster, which is so thematically relevant. Then I'd like to talk about Miriam Bloodstained just a little bit, and Alucard specifically in Soten. So from what I remember of Roten lore, Miriam is kind of like a human experiment, right? Like all of the little glass stain little thingies on her body, it's shard binding. She's binding shards. She's taking in the powers of other monsters and using them, which is very similar to Soma, but Soma does it because he has a personal connection with the monsters. She does it because she can take raw energy from the environment and bring it into her body, right? Then, going beyond that, not only can she absorb nearly anything Kirby style, but you can also do a lot gameplay-wise to customize things. It's ridiculously deep and customizable. You have, like, upgradable stuff that some people might never use, like your upgradable shards, weapons, that kind of thing. There are hidden inputs you can look for. There is literal character customization. It feels like Miriam is your experiment also. She's very vast. Like, when I think about Bloodstained and Roten, I think about the abundance, kind of the messiness. Like, there's so much thrown in there. It's maximalist. Just put everything in there. And that really befits a shard binder, right? Because she can take in anything from the environment, I believe. Unless it's like a special rule about the castle, and all the monsters in the castle have shards, but normal creatures don't have shards. I don't know. That's how I'm pretty sure Roten works. And then that stands in a very stark contrast to Alucard. So Alucard specifically has what I think is one of the most well-balanced expansive movesets. Not in terms of game difficulty, because he could kill a lot of the bosses because of the EXP scaling, but I think that Alucard has a very expansive moveset that invites you out to each level as you discover it, but isn't so big as to make you not feel like you can master it. Like, there's a bazillion shards you're never gonna see fully upgraded in Roten, but with the sub-weapons, like, dude, that's a sub-weapon. Like, you gotta use all those. The sub-weapons actually, to me, kind of give Soten a lot of its personality, because they're really fun to use, and there's not that many of them, but there kind of isn't a small amount of them either. It's just fresh enough, just simple enough. It's always like, oh, hey, I haven't used that one in a while, and it keeps the game going. And then you find on your own the spells, which is an awesome secret, by the way. The game doesn't point you to those necessarily, and if you happen to find them, that's a whole new thing. You can choose whether or not to use it. Also, and this is getting to that story layer, they're very Dracula core, and it's your choice whether or not to use your dad's moves, That's a very fitting thing. It's really interesting that the morality system never made it into Soten, because it almost feels like the spells and the sub-weapons are perfectly made for it. Because you want to know my theory on why Alucard uses subs, but Soma doesn't unless they're incidentally in a soul, and Miriam doesn't, and friggin' only Jonathan does, It's because he explored with a bunch of monster hunters. Like, he spent time with Trevor at the least in this continuity. Like, he worked with the Belmont, so he knows how to use these weapons, is kind of how it feels. That might be something where somebody could tell me the actual lore, but to me, Alucard is Alucard, and the sub-weapons would be one thing that sets him apart from his dad. The sub-weapons remind me of his time in Castlevania 3, and that's pretty cool. Like, there's no actual in-game morality system here where, like, Shadow the Hedgehog, good versus evil, use a bunch of throwing knives to be good. That's not there, but there's the Belmont but collection of skills, and there's the Dracula collection of skills, and that's really cool. And then you get into all of the special, like, whatchamacallums, the relics, all the different relics he knows how to use because he was raised in this special magical family, and he knows how to use all these spells, and he has his innate vampire powers that are very him, like the wolf, and he's been trained in using all kinds of weapons. Like, the multiple layers that Soten has, each one of them feels like a reflection of Alucard, and I feel like it fits his power level at the time of Soten in a very specific way, where if he experiments and he taps and he gets a bit deeper into who he is, he could just happen to find the ability to raise his cloak and shoot out fireballs, but he doesn't necessarily come in mastering it. I might be mistaken about that. I definitely might be going out on a limb, but to me, every part of Soten's combat feels like a natural extension of Alucard as a character, and their absence in other games, or the way that they're implemented differently. Like, for example, Jonathan having to get better at the sub-weapons because he's a, Diet Pepsi Belmont, basically. It's different, Alucard already knows how to use these tools. Jonathan has to learn them. That really clearly shows their difference in relationship with Monster Hunter type people. Jonathan's up and coming. Alucard's been rolling with these guys for hundreds of years. That's the vibe. And then the story of the game. Like, not only is he marching on the castle, but he has this whole extra part to just reflect. We have the whole upside down castle to just drag out the approach to Dracula, which is an extremely personal, probably the most personal, like the most touching and almost violating final battle in any of these games is Alucard fighting his dad, right? I mean, okay, he did it before. He did it before in Castlevania 3, right? But, like, still, it's personal. And he's, like, really killing him, like, as bad as he can this time. Like, I feel like the reverse castle is so Alucard in that it gives you time to reflect and think about what you're doing. And it lets you sink into the moment and remember, like, this is your home. Like, you have to run through all of the rooms again because this is your home. And, like, this is supposed to be a nostalgic place for him. And it's a good time to just, like, feel the weight of the journey. That is how I feel about these things. That's pretty much just a tangent, but there's so many ways you can map the protagonists onto their games, which is just so cool when you consider how few games each protagonist gets and how distinct they are mixed in with the protagonists. Which is to say, holy crap, Shanoa's game. So, for the uninitiated, let me explain that Shanoa is blue, she has very pretty hair, and she's from a weird little college cult thing where they've been studying how to use things called glyphs, which are like magical symbols that represent a natural power, and sometimes the natural power is swords. These encompass both weapons and spells, but they're one system, and she learns them like copy abilities or souls from the monsters she fights. And she starts off with none of them, even though she is a scholar of glyphs, and she was being prepared to be the ultimate weapon that would kill Dracula because she was betrayed, and the experiment went wrong, and now she has no glyphs and no emotions. And I'll be honest, aside from some connections where it's like, oh damn, she doesn't have emotions. That is an inherently interesting thing that I can relate to. I haven't seen enough of the game through to see how that plays into the story, but she starts as a empty tome where you can fill up all those skills again, which is kind of interesting because like she didn't need to necessarily be Metroidvania reset, but she was Metroidvania reset and she lost all her powers, so she travels around getting weapons from the world. She's not already, she's already capable of using them the way that Alucard is capable of using them, but she has to work and relearn everything. And I like that, It would have been whatever if she was just like, oh boy, I read about how to use these, but I don't know how to use them. This is basically a memory where you go out and you seek the glyph and you remember it, and that is very, very fun. They're very, very nice to use. They're very, very well made. It's very clever having one system, one stamina bar, manage both your steel weapons and your magic. It makes being a spellcaster a little bit more viable than other games, I would say. And that is where the game gets its core combat. Then, she's an outsider. She's not trying to be a Belmont. She's not helping the Belmont. She's not Dracula's son betraying Dracula. She's from some fucking college in New Hampshire. She's from some Ivy League academy out in the middle of the woods. And this game has a whole big overworld that you explore. Well, it's not an overworld per se, but there's a map full of different areas that are outside the castle. I haven't even got to the castle. That's why this isn't a review, This is just a pulse video still, because I've heard there's a whole world inside the castle. But with Shanoa's journey, you explore the countryside, going from forests to aquatic area to forests to aquatic areas, and it has a very distinct charm that's unlike anything else I've seen in a 2D game, at least. You're outside the castle, both in terms of your bloodline. You know, you're not doomed to go to the castle like a Belmont is. You're not Dracula kin. You don't have to inherit the castle against your will or protect the souls of people whose fates get dragged into the castle or whatever. It's just a Shanoa's road trip around the countryside, and that fits into the whole more of an adventure game than a Metroidvania thing. And it, you know, fits in that outsider color, which is really neat. So those colors are very, very pretty colors, but I am going to save my appraisal of the atmosphere and the tone and the vibes of the game, so to speak, for the final segment. And I'd like to kind of stick on these first two layers with the combat and the world structure, the adventure here. So this, as I've been mentioning, is a mix, and it's a really, really good one. You do go through like action challenge gauntlets where the difficulty's high. The difficulty makes this work. So you get into linear segments, kind of like you could technically call it a big cut up Metroidvania map, and you just have snippets of little explorable area or linear fight area. And you have to really engage with everything mindfully, where every encounter has a huge amount of danger. So it's not just linear, but like a real arcadey feel, just like a classic Vania. You have to be careful. You're never going to be able to wildly spend your most powerful moves, and you really have to know your enemy's weaknesses, meaning that every single thing is calculated. Every step is earned. And I've heard that the difficulty spikes up even harder later, which is crazy, because I have had numerous sections where I have had to grind. I grind this game really hard. And that right there is kind of the miracle that makes me love Order of Ecclesia. I do love it. Like, I really like it. I really want to spend more time with this, because it doesn't come up often, but I am a grinder. I grew up grinding JRPGs, which is probably really hard to imagine, but my adult tastes have not only shifted, but matured. You know, like I am a long way from JRPG town now, but I really enjoy grinding, and both this and Portrait of Ruin have given me opportunities to actually truly enjoy grinding in an action game, which I never have hit the pocket with before, but this one especially. Like, Portrait, it's been meh. I kind of want to do a 1000% because I enjoy this game. With Order, it's like, shit, I can't heal. I can never heal because I'm poor. I can't use these healing items. I gotta go grind, you know? And if something has an item I haven't picked up yet, listed as one of its rare drops, then I go, oh, okay, I gotta go get that. If I'm gonna grind something, I should probably grind that in case it's helpful. And did you notice how I transitioned from talking about an arcadey action game straight into like real RPG elements naturally? Like, that's the miracle here. Progression, that's one thing, but the simple marriage of action and progression, action and feedback loops, action and combat options, strategy, it is so good. Like, I have been talking about things and how elegant they are, and this is very elegantly designed, but this is where it goes beyond just elegant, and it's like, you know what? You're so elegant that you're a Chad. You're really cool. Everybody loves you. You should be more confident. Like, man, this is perfect to me. Like, this is so damn fun. It's demanding, it's tightly choreographed, and the way that you deal with it is half skill and half planning, half grinding, half strategizing. It's really, really good. Like, oh my god. And then you compound that with the progression, and it's very, very interesting. There's really nothing else quite like it that I'm aware of. I mentioned before that you've got this like snipped up Metroidvania map, and it truly is like you can warp from this world map to anywhere you want after you finish a level. So you can take certain sections of the world, but I would really just call them levels and grind that if you want to. You'll get to know, like, oh, there's the forest. I could go to the forest and do a quick run. Like, that one, it's a straight up linear line, super low level. It's really fun and easy to do. It's like running one of those EXP grinding maps in Fire Emblem, except it's a fun linear action game. And again, with the Chad energy, it wouldn't work if it wasn't so fun, but the enemies are really fun to fight, and the music is good. Like, fuck, I let the cat out of the bag. The music's good, and the atmosphere is good. It's fun to be in these areas. Like, I didn't want to put this game down. Half the reason I've been struggling to process this game amidst my gamer burnout and everything is just like, when I play it, I want to play it so much, and then all of this richness, like, I eat too much and I get too full and I get a stomach ache. There's so much to enjoy. You want to play these levels over and over again on so many levels, you know? It's a hard RPG. You've got to get your levels up. It's a fun action game. I want to go use my new move. I want to use my electric hammer. I want to go use my wind sword. I want to use this new spell that I got. It's fun to do. It's a wonderful marriage. And your overall progression, while it could be a bit better with the amount of progression upgrades you get, your progression items and stuff, it's there, you know? You've got all these water levels, we'll get to that, and then you get the ability to swim more freely, and holy crap, I can go back to that level and swim underwater, and it opens up a new part of the map. Like, shit, babe, that's progression, that's adventure. It's an honest to goodness adventure action RPG in one of like the best senses of each one of those words, where you feel like you're on a cool quest to get to Dracula's castle, which on itself not every game does. I could probably fall into the mistake right now of saying that it's unique to this game, but I can tell that Curse of Darkness has some country trotting. I was told that Bloodlines has you moving around the world quite a lot, and Simon's Quest is pretty countryside exploring, so it's not the only one, but it really befits Shinoa going to all of these new places. And man, you want to know what makes this all even more fun? If it wasn't enough to do fun things, to improve your strategies, to do a really challenging grindy RPG that requires item management. There's item management in a really good way and all that other stuff. You have a hub town to build up. Like, fuck. You have a really well-made hub town to fill up, where sometimes in these levels you will find NPCs who want to come back, and every one of them is written with really fun lines that are nice to hear, a distinct personality, voice acting. The voice acting is weirdly good on these characters in the village, Weigal Village. Follows me on YouTube. Hey. Very nice, insightful comments you leave. I look forward to them. And I've been looking forward to talking about Weigal Village because it's so cool. Like, it's this really beautiful little town where the art style is just like pixel art cranked up to 1 billion. The insides of those houses are so nice, and you fill them up with people who are rewards for exploring, and then you give them items and do RPG quests to get more stuff. It's just such a great marriage of things, you guys. Oh my god. There was a poll which was like, you know, what is the next kind of like style that you would want to see if a proper Castlevania game came out? And I absolutely, like, if for example they've got Evil Empire from Dead Cells, there's a strong reason to believe, you can look at my video right here, there's a strong reason to believe that they're working on a new Classicvania right now, or a new 2D Castlevania. This is the style I want to see. This is the style I want to see. Like, it is so fun. It is so ridiculously fun. And I think Weigal Village, from a technical level, really, or a mechanical level, really underscores the strengths here. You really, really want to have money. So when you go back to Weigal, it's like, crap, I gotta sell this thing and get the money. I gotta get the healing potion, but if I buy that, I won't have enough. Like, bartering is a serious deal. And then seeing this small, carefully designed town fill up with people is exciting. Like, oh my god, that guy moved into that house over there where I was grinding the crate to get milk. Like, I was waiting for somebody to go there. And then there's cats to find that fill up the village. And it's just, oh my goodness, it is a wonderful synthesis point for all these different things. But at the end of the day, it's not my personal favorite. Order of Ecclesia is such an elegant, blue, somber, and majestic game. and I feel so complicated and nuanced about it. And that is the most important thing of all. I could have opened with this framing, but I really obviously wanted to talk about the Castlevania-y-ness of it. I wanted to talk about the protagonist point. I wanted to talk about the break from the norms. I wanted to talk about the gameplay, because that is so essential. But the real big thing, the real big reason that I like this game, but I'm still warming up to it, is the world and its atmosphere hit such a personal place, in not in the like, oh my god, this is so me, I'm in love, more of like the damn, I gotta think about this a little bit. Water, I've been building to it. Oh my god, it's so cool how many water levels there are. It's like, oh my gosh, I've mentioned before, you walk from left to right over the waves, bouncing on floating crates and avoiding like Castlevania swordfish that are trying to kill you, while Castlevania mermen also jump out of the water. And this is one of your earliest linear levels. If you fall in the water, you have to get out of the water, but later you get the ability to swim, so that's where you go back in to progress, and it becomes this beautiful, sprawling, magical little deep sea area. I believe, if not this one, then the other, there are some bits where, while you're exploring on the surface, some deeper sea creatures can come up and attack you, which is so cool. Like, if this were a Metroidvania in my mind, which it's really not, it would be a contender for the wettest, and Yohane Blaze in the Deep Blue would be kind of sweating. It's not the wettest, but it's pretty wet. It's just so pretty. I've just never seen these kinds of aesthetics put into games. There's like a prison, but it's not just a prison. It's a prison lighthouse thing, and you walk along the walls, and there's like a spotlight, kind of like whatchamacallit island from Wind Waker, where you're doing the stealth, and the waves are crashing, and they're beautiful. And it's so lovely, and then the first major boss is this gigantic crab that chases you up a lighthouse, and it's so fun, and it's so fucking New England. I don't get it, you guys. Like, this is the most New England game ever. I'm from Massachusetts. Like, what the fuck? As I'm doing this, I'm holding the stuff that I brought to Japan to represent my hometown, which is a wooden plaque that says Wicked, as if it were a dictionary definition. And I've got this hat that my not blood uncle gave to me. That's like a Boston Red Sox pom-pom hat, and I put it on my Torchic plushie, who's like rooting for me right now, and she looks like she's going out to a hockey game or something. And it's wicked cool, but it's also like, what the fuck? Because there is no chance that I'm gonna dig up an interview where it's like, we traveled to Gloucester to get inspiration for this game. Like, no. And the thing is, you guys, I live in such a New England part of Japan right now. I'm not gonna dox myself, but like, I live on a depressed coastal area. I know what it's like in the depressed coastal areas. It's not like this. Like, you could be like, oh, they're taking inspiration from Britain or whatever. And it's like, sure, maybe they are, but like, oh my god. The amount of depressed seaside gothic that made it into New England created a very similar culture. And you know what? There was the Cthulhu guy. It might sound like I'm just raving, but listen to me. This applies to you if you're watching Melovania. The Cthulhu guy. Not H.G. Wells. He was kind of racist, so I don't respect him, and I forget his name. But the fucking guy who wrote Cthulhu and made up like eldritch horror, the idea of like horrors that are beyond our comprehension, he lived in Rhode Island, and I know what the water looks like in Rhode Island. It's very dark, it's very cold, it's not friendly, it's very scary, and there's seaweed. And the only reason that I claim eldritch horror and Cthulhu as part of my culture, even though I reject Lovecraft. I reject Lovecraft. Even though I reject Lovecraft, yeah, no, it is so natural that if you live in New England and you have, the echoes of Puritanism and the echoes of the start of the colonist, raids on the natives and the witch trials, we got the fucking witch trials over here. Yeah, that's gonna be a New England Castlevania whether you like it or not. We have the witch trials. Yeah, we had Lisa Tepesh 2 days ago over here. Oh my god, you guys. If you live with all the fucking ghosts and all the fucking depressing Puritan architecture, and you look at the water and you can't see shit and it's dark and there's crabs and seaweed, you're gonna imagine eldritch horrors beyond your imagination. You're gonna make Castlevania Order of Ecclesia. And I say this in a matter of fact, almost bewildered, almost dispassionate way, because I don't know, it's not even projection. It's not projection. I'm not projecting New England onto this. I'm not saying that it's canonically New England. It's what this is so fucking similar to New England that I can't help but have feelings. You're fighting a giant crab monster in a lighthouse. That's all we have for culture. Oh, and if we had anything else for culture, it's emotionally repressed people and colleges. The bickering that happens where Albus is I should have been the elite scholar, I should have used the Dominus, we work together but I'm betraying you. That's academic drama. That's what happens when you have Harvard and you have half the Ivy Leagues and you have MIT, which Japanese people like a lot more than Harvard, I learned. And you got Yale, that's an Ivy League, and you've got all these good state school, That's what it's like to live in New England. I'm sorry if I'm losing you, but I'm getting a pulse here. And the pulse is a bunch of emotionally repressed Puritans falling upon eldritch witchcraft and bickering amongst each others and stabbing each other in the back like you do to get your doctorate. And what am I supposed to do? But beyond the funny, it's coastal, it's gothy, it's if it doesn't know that it's Lovecraft inspired, then what is it? I don't know. Beyond all of that, it reminds me of home in a kind of weird way. I've never been away from home so long, but now I realize how much living by the seaside impacted me, and it goes so far because seaside, you normally think fun beaches and stuff, but Weigal Village actually makes me a little bit uncomfortable. It's a kind of out there feeling for me because it's that brooding, depressed, somber energy. It reminds me of my stepmom. It's this very cozy but kind of drab kind of thing. And I've lived around this aesthetic for so long. This is how my stepmom is. This is how she makes my dad's house when I'm home. I'm talking about my dad's house on Melovania because of this game. So it's a little bit hard to process my emotions. And if this is a Pulse video, all I can do is throw my hands up in the air and say, why does this remind me of Jen? I think Weigal Village is so cool mechanically, but I kind of struggle to connect with it emotionally because, and this is a very important point that I'm getting to, is my weakness as a Castlevania fan is that I'm not that big of a goth. I run with goths. I know a lot about goth culture. I'm always bumping into goths, but I'm more of a emo, I'm more of flavor, color, crazy, you know what I mean? I like dark, I like cool, I like repressed and stuff like that. But Order of Ecclesia is so close to home in a way that's just not quite my style, but I'm not writing it off because I have a Castlevania game that I love playing where I walk through beautiful forests that remind me of home, and I go to lighthouses that remind me of home to go swimming in the ocean and have a cool fantasy adventure that I would have loved to give my child self because I grew up looking at the ocean and being terrified of what was in it. And it's just, again, I can't overstate how cool it is to have these water levels because they have that charm and polish and fun that makes them a cool ocean level versus just a boring water temple. And there's so much life and there are so many cool sea creature enemies that go into it. And if it weren't so close to home, I would just be like, this game rules! But it's such a funny feeling. And one of the biggest things here is when I first saw Shanoa, I was like, she's cool. She reminds me of one of my friends for sure. She's kind of cute. But then time went on, I'm like, holy shit, she reminds me so much of my sister. Like, she reminds me a lot of my sister. My sister's like me, but even more repressed and cool and elegant, and has long hair, and she's more cool tones and like ocean marine science stuff. You can picture it, right? Like, she could have Danielle-vania, and I could picture it. Can you picture it? I can picture it. Shanoa reminds me of my sister, which is a lot to process. If Weigal Village reminds me of my stepmom, and the Shanoa reminds me of my sister, and the fucking rock and roll skeleton area that they made, which is fun as hell, reminds me of my dad, it's kind of more than just a game. And yet at the same time, it's such a complicated emotion to process. And I only say all of this personal stuff because this game was made with so much care. Because they weren't trying to make New England here. They were just making, I don't know, Watervania. They're probably reading fucking HG tide pools. They were reading, I don't know, Brontes on the beach. They're probably pulling from British shit. But it's so nuanced that when I look at it, it reminds me of home. And it reminds me of my own life. And you know, I know Shanoa's based on, like, Iga's wife. Like, that's so cool. She wasn't made to just be, like, a simple one-note action hero. She's nuanced. You look at her, and maybe you see yourself, maybe you see somebody else, but everything is cooked with so much subtlety that it's a big game that takes up space. And I get it. I get why everybody talks like this is, like, the lost other great Castlevania. I firmly think that it's obvious that it's one of the greatest Castlevania games. Like, it's definitely slept on because it was kind of the end of the golden years of Castlevania, and it hit at a funny time. And if we had more games that were worse versions of it, we would look back and go, oh yeah, that was pretty good. But Lords of Shadow is just like its own thing, and it's weird. It sits at a funny place in history, and I played it, a lot of it. I'm not done with it. And I made such a personal connection because it's beautiful and it's so specific. It's blue, it's purple, it's coastal, it's underwater. It has so much personality. It's so well made, but I like Portrait of Ruin more. And I am so fucking glad to have finally made this video. My sister's Virgil. She's cool. She's blue. But I'm an idiot. And I want to party. And I want to have fun. And I want to laugh. And that's what Portrait of Ruin makes me do. And I am going to come back to y'all with a Portrait of Ruin video as soon as I can. More than a Pulse video. This will be a masterpiece. Holy shit. Ultimately, I can't say much more about this fucking game because it shares so much with a game that I love so much and loved so much from the first Pulse that, like, is so painfully similar that, like, I can't really go through and review too many of the monsters in this game. Besides, I really like that they took that creepy skull with the worms that I saw in Aria and made it a full boss. Very cool, very thematic. I can't go any deeper because I can't keep talking if I'm not going to talk about Portrait of Ruin. So, that's my pulse on Order of Ecclesia. I hope that's worth your votes. I almost didn't make this video because it's such a complicated topic. But I really like it. It's really cool. I'm not as, like, fierily passionate about it as I am other games, but I think it's because it's hard to process. It's rich. It's not a simple, you look at it and you get it thing, the way Portrait of Ruin is. It's deeper. It's more of a masterpiece. It's cooler. So fuck, like, damn, I want to know more about why people like this game. I want to hear more about it because it took me all of a couple hours to realize everything I said here. Like, it's a beautiful game with a very distinct aesthetic, lovely music, really cool characters, incredible game balance, and so many little blessings that I refuse to keep playing it right now. Like, I'm seeing my Ecclesia mortality fly by, and I'm running out of new experiences, and I gotta come back when I'm craving it, when I'm like, man, I wish I had an aquatic, rich, beautiful, moving game that reminds me of my home to play. That's when I'll play more of this, but until then... Portrait of Ruin, baby! Team Portrait, let's fucking go! Jonathan and Charlotte all day, let's go!